This pigeon's name is Richard, and this used to be his nest. But while he was raising chicks somewhere else, another pair moved in. Now Richard is back, and he wants his home. A new male pigeon discovers the nest. He calls for his mate, bobbing his head. It doesn't take long for her to join him, and just like that, they've found their new home. This nest was abandoned 19 days ago. It was used by Richard and his mate during their last brood. Now it belongs to someone else. But Richard isn't going to let that happen. A week earlier, something strange happened. The new male calls for his mate. She arrives, and seconds later, Richard appears. He lunges at her, grabbing her by the neck and chasing her off the nest. The new male doesn't seem to notice at first, but then he realizes what's happening and quickly retreats. Sparrows quickly visit every day for feathers. It's free insulation for their nest. But it doesn't stop there. Richard keeps coming back, again and again. Most of the time, he manages to drive the new male off the nest. After each fight, he stays behind, cooing, as if to remind them, this nest is still his. Sometimes the fights get rough. They both refuse to give up the nest. Neither side is willing to back down. But the nest holds strong. And it's not over yet. The fight gets even more intense. And despite everything, the new couple keeps coming back. The next day, things calm down. They start preening each other. It's a sign of bonding, reinforcing trust in the middle of all this chaos. But even that doesn't stop Richard. He returns without warning, and this time the new male hides behind the female. Yet Richard still targets him. Say what you want, but you have to give him credit for that one. At one point, he even stands on the new male and drives them both away. Not even an hour later, the new male is back again, but calling for his mate draws attention, and Richard wastes no time. Richard charges straight in. Oh no, he lands heavy blows on the new male. The new male fights back, but not as strong. Richard pins him down, once again standing on top of him. But it won't be that easy. The new male slips out from underneath. He repositions himself and fights back. Asserting his dominance, he pushes Richard off the nest. But Richard isn't done yet, and he comes back in, trapping both wings. But somehow, the new male fights his way out. He pushes back and forces Richard down for good. And for once, he starts cooing, almost like payback. Richard can't let that slide, though. He comes back for round 2. They clash again, exchanging blows. But Richard quickly takes the high ground and starts pecking down at him. The new male tries, but Richard always comes back stronger. But the new male refuses to give up the nest. Richard goes for the same old technique and stands on him. But somehow, the new male seems to do it again. But he knows this isn't over. Richard will come back from another angle. The female joins him and takes position on the nest, and then Richard gets into the tree. He slips right between them and jumps straight onto the nest and takes the nest for himself. For a moment, he stands his ground. The new male tries to find a way. He has no choice but to charge back in. They clash until they tumble off the nest together. An hour later, the couple returns again, and somehow they don't seem discouraged. Their bond is strong, stronger than the threat. For now, the nest is quiet, but in pigeon territory, peace never lasts. Richard attacks again. The male runs away, and at first barely defends his mate. But he can't do that to his own wifey. He steps forward, forces his way in. It's not an easy one, but this time he takes Richard down. Oh no, I didn't think of that. Headshot. But somehow, the brave new male still finds a way. But even now, it's not over. An hour later, the male calls for his mate again. The female moves closer, gently pecking him. A small moment of calm. Together they start adjusting the nest, still figuring it out as they go. After all, they didn't build it. Eventually, Richard leaves the tree alone for some time. But he hasn't given up the nest yet. Later that evening, the female returns to the nest. 12 minutes after arrival, I notice she is slowly beginning to stand up. Around 8 p.m., the first egg is laid. She looks around for a moment, then leaves for the night. From this point on, the egg needs constant warmth for 16 to 18 days. Both parents take turns. The male during most of the day, the female at night, almost never leaving it alone. Not even when it's raining. Only when Richard decides to attack. And boy, does he ever. He even makes it onto the nest, with the new egg right there. 2 days later, she starts to rise again. And just like that, the second egg is laid. Now the real work begins, because over the next few days, the attacks don't stop. Richard keeps returning. He mainly attacks from above the nest. But in other news, a rainy day has settled over the nest. At night, the slugs come out. One of them even slithers across the female's chest, but she doesn't flinch. You can only admire the dedication. But switching shifts can attract attention, and today it does. An attack comes from above. The female tries to intercept, but the branch is too small. Richard takes the chance and jumps straight onto the nest. The eggs are right there. But instead, he goes for the female, pecking. He's forcing her to stay down. She has no choice now. She pushes straight through him, back onto the nest. They clash right on top of the eggs. At one point, he's standing on her. But she keeps fighting, forcing him away, and she chases him. Then immediately, she returns to the nest, guarding the eggs. Richard ambushes her, but she ends up with his feathers in her mouth. How about that? Each time the parents push him back, but it's clear Richard is not giving up. Ow! On day 10, another attack begins. He comes in fast, already ready to fight. The male steps up immediately, moving out to confront him. But that leaves the nest open, and Richard takes it. The male is late. Then Richard ducks down to the eggs, and instantly the male reacts without hesitation. He launches back onto the nest, pure instinct, and forces Richard off, and chases him out. But the fight isn't over yet. 10 minutes later, he's back. A new angle, waiting on the side, and now the female is the one defending. He goes in again. She puts up a strong fight, but it's no match for Richard. This time, he manages to push her off the nest. But she doesn't give up, not even for a second, until finally she forces her way back onto the nest. She puts up a tough fight, but the eggs are still safe. After days of constant tension, constant fights, and constant Richard, things finally start to settle down. Fewer attacks, longer quiet moments, but they've already been brooding for many days now. which means hatching could happen any moment. Psych, Richard is back, and this time it's no small attack. On day 16, he launches a full assault on the nest. It goes on for hours. He manages to get onto the nest once, but that's the last time the new male allows it. For nearly 4 hours, the new male defends his nest against constant barrages. He just needs to hold on. Hatching is so close now. And finally, around 9 a.m., the first chick arrives. After weeks of fighting and defending, there's finally something worth protecting. But this is where it really begins. Mum carefully removes the eggshell, keeping the nest clean and hidden. The chick is still wet, occasionally moving. As Mum returns, another pigeon lands in the tree at the same moment. No hesitation. She launches at it, driving it away before it can get any closer. Only then, she returns to the nest. She spreads her wings slightly, shielding the newborn from the outside world. A simple instinct, but a crucial one. Right now, this chick is completely defenseless. And here, one mistake is enough. The next morning, the second chick hatches. Now there are two, small, fragile, and completely unaware of the chaos around them. Both parents produce something called crop milk, a nutrient-rich fluid made in their throat. It's rare in birds, and it's exactly what these chicks need to survive their first days. But while they grow, the danger doesn't stop. Richard is still out there, and now he's getting closer. Dad drives him off. Again, same result, but the third time, he doesn't stay outside. He flies straight into the tree right next to the nest. Dad reacts instantly, going on the offensive. But that split second is all Richard needs. He jumps onto the nest, right next to the chicks. Too small to move, too small to escape. Dad spins back, slamming into him. He keeps hitting until Richard is forced off the nest. And even then, it's not over. Richard keeps coming back. Different angles, again and again. The fight goes on for nearly an hour. Over the next few days, the attacks don't stop. Richard keeps coming back, but the parents hold him off. Barely. At the same time, the chicks are growing fast. Day by day, they're getting bigger, stronger, but not strong enough. On day 4, something changes. Richard starts attacking from the side, where the parents can barely reach him, almost like he's baiting them. They scramble along the branches, trying to cut him off, but he's always just out of reach, until he makes it onto the nest, right on top of the chicks, careless. But Dad is there instantly, forcing him off again, just in time. The next couple of days are a mix of feeding, fighting, and quiet moments between the parents. They find small pockets of peace in the chaos. That night, everything feels calm. You can see the full moon through the branches of the tree. For a moment, it feels peaceful. Then one day, Dad leaves the nest, just for a moment, and that's all it takes. Richard gets in. This time, he goes straight for the chicks. But before he even touches them, one of them reacts. Its eyes barely open, yet it still pecks toward him. A tiny, instinctive defense. But it doesn't matter. Richard starts pecking. He targets one chick in particular, ignoring the other completely. It only lasts about 25 seconds, but it's enough to leave a mark. When Dad returns, Richard shifts his focus to him. But he doesn't back off. He holds his ground on the nest. Dad has no choice but to move in. The moment he jumps on the nest, Richard slips away, avoiding the fight, but the damage is already done, and it doesn't go unnoticed. The chicks are sadly still in defense mode. Later, when Mum feeds them, you can clearly see it. One chick's neck, red. That's the one he targeted. And strangely, life just continues. Feeding, growing, surviving. Even though the danger never really leaves. That night, Mum is supposed to stay alert, but instead, she starts falling asleep. Her head drops. This keeps on happening over the next few nights. The chicks are growing fast, doubling in size and gaining a lot of weight. Their eyes are beginning to open. Feathers are slowly starting to come in, and Dad begins leaving them alone more often, sometimes for hours. They're not as fragile anymore, but they're still far from safe. You can see it in their behavior too. They react to almost everything now, even to the little sparrows, pecking at them. Almost like a reflex, maybe from the attack, or maybe just by copying their parents, who are constantly fighting with Richard. I hope everything is okay with Mom, though. One day, Richard tries again. He lands high in the tree. Dad moves up to meet him, trying to cut him off, but Richard changes direction. The moment he moves, Dad reacts instantly. Pure instinct. Dad decides to go on the offensive, but in doing so, he again leaves an opening. Richard, of course, takes it, but not for long. Dad slams into him, fights, and chases him away. In the meantime, the chicks just keep on growing, but not as fast now. When fed, you can still see their scarred neck. Their feathers darken, their bodies fill out. The nest feels smaller every day, and for the first time, they're left alone at night. Morning comes early. Mom is already back, feeding them as the sun rises. But then something completely different appears. A red squirrel. She puffs up and strikes it with her wings. For the first time, you can really see and hear Mom's fear. But she manages to drive the beast away. And still, it doesn't stop. Another attack follows. But something else is changing now. The parents stop brooding constantly. Instead, they come, feed, stay briefly, and leave again. Their begging becomes louder, more desperate. Their diet begins to change too, from pure crop milk to something heavier, pre-digested seeds, which means longer trips for the parents, more time away, more moments where the nest is empty. And eventually, that creates an opening. At first, it looks like a parent, same species, same size, but something feels off. This isn't Richard, it's his wife, Richette, and she's here for one reason. She wants her old nest back. I'm not going to show everything, but it lasts for 3 full minutes. She pecks at them, again and again. She wants space in the nest for her own eggs. At a certain point, one of the chicks tries to hide, crawling underneath her, like she's their parent. But then she just stops and jumps to a nearby branch. She sits there for about 12 minutes, thinking about what she just did. And then she leaves. The chicks are still alive. A few hours later, Dad returns. He has no idea what just happened. And somehow, they keep going. Because what choice do they have? The days after that are quieter. Not peaceful, but quieter. The chicks grow stronger. They start standing more, flapping their wings, testing their balance. They're not just surviving anymore, they're developing. Their begging becomes louder and more demanding by the day. Sometimes it's almost too much for the parents. But the attacks never fully stop. Go away, Richard! At one point, someone comes in from above. The chicks react like it's a parent. But it's not. Richard starts pecking them. And this time, it's a male pigeon doing it. A minute later, I step in. As soon as he hears me, he hesitates, and the moment he sees me, he's gone. 12 minutes later, Mum returns. The chicks don't seem visibly affected, still responding, still begging. You can clearly see marks on her chest from all the fighting. But Richard isn't done yet. He tries again, but this time Mum blocks him completely, standing between him and the nest. Every move he makes, she mirrors it, but he doesn't care. He forces his way in anyway. They clash on the nest. The chicks can do nothing but watch as their mother fights for their lives, but eventually she pushes him off. The chicks crawl underneath her, trying to hide, but it's not over. She steps over them, locking back onto Richard. At one point, I've had enough. So yes, I shoot him with a water pistol, and Richard finally backs off, for now. The parents don't leave anymore for today. They stay with the chicks. The threat is real. The nest is getting crowded. The chicks are bigger now, stronger, louder. The parents change their strategy, leaving the chicks alone for longer periods, because this is the next stage. The chicks begin practicing, pecking, flapping, watching everything around them. They copy each other constantly, and slowly the nest becomes too small. They're almost ready. But these last days are often the most dangerous, because in nature, staying too long can be just as risky as leaving too early. Richard makes a few more attempts, but he can't get close anymore. The parents shut him down early. They just need to hold on a little longer. They're so close now. But then something changes. One of the chicks looks completely normal, active, curious, full of energy. But the other one is different. Still, quiet, and in the wild, that can become a serious problem. When a parent comes to feed them, the stronger chick is the only one feeding. The weaker one stays low. Even when it tries to reach, it comes up short, again and again. Eventually, it gets pushed behind its sibling, and there it just stops, like the feeding reflex disappears, until suddenly it realizes it can reach from the other side. Eventually, it manages to get a little food, but not much. It keeps begging, but the parent has stopped feeding and doesn't continue. When they're alone, the difference becomes obvious. One is moving constantly, flapping, exploring, growing stronger. The other barely moves. Sometimes it even gets stepped over and doesn't react. At the next feeding, it happens again. It's hard to see, but the weaker chick gets boxed out in the same position. But this time, it manages to push away the stronger chick. A small improvement, but an important one. For a while, things almost look normal again. It mimics its sibling, pecks back, moves a little more. Maybe it's recovering. Maybe it'll bounce back. It starts socializing again with its stronger sibling. Maybe by the end, it'll even be the first one out of the nest. But by the next morning, it's worse. The chick barely moves at all. Meanwhile, the other one is ready to explore. On day 20, at 6:45 a.m., it steps out of the nest, dropping down onto a branch below. No worries. Young pigeons don't fly immediately, but the weaker chick stays behind. Sometimes it moves, but not in a healthy way. Eventually, it manages to shift into a new position, but you can clearly see how weak it has become. Soon after, Mom returns. One chick is calling loudly from below. but she goes to the nest first, to the one that stayed. The chick doesn't react the way it normally should. It barely moves. You can see Mom bringing up food, trying to signal the chick to eat. You can see it respond, one big effort to reach her. But it can't hold itself up. It's already too weak. She tries again and again, gently preening it, encouraging it, staying with it. For nearly an hour, she doesn't give up, but eventually, she has to leave. The other chick still needs her too. A fly lands on the weak chick. It reacts, but only slightly. A small wiggle, not the response you'd expect. When Mom returns, she tries again. The chick still wants to eat, but it just can't. Poor little baby. I don't know exactly why the mom does this. I want to trust nature and believe she knows what she's doing. Eventually, she leaves again to feed the other chick below. When she returns, you can see feeding marks on her face. The chick in the nest barely moves. Mom gives the chick one last look, and then she leaves again. The chick is still breathing, but slower now, heavier. Around 9:30 in the morning, it sadly takes its final breath. In the wild, not every chick survives. Even in successful nests, one is often lost. A little later, Dad returns. He looks at the chick, almost as if he's checking for signs of life. Then he leaves again, to care for the one that made it. The other chick survived and came out of the tree. Later that day, I saw it in my garden.